They were all good sons, and their names were Anga, Sumana, Khyati, Kratu, Angira, and Gaya. Text 18. The wife of Anga, Sunita, gave birth to a son named Veena, who was very crooked. The saintly king Anga was very disappointed with Veena's bad character, and he left home and kingdom and went out to the forest. Text 19 to 20. My dear Vidura, when great sages curse, their words are as invincible as a thunderbolt. Thus, when they cursed King Veena out of anger, he died. After his death, since there was no king, all the rogues and thieves flourished. The kingdom became unregulated, and all the citizens suffered greatly. On seeing this, the great sages took the right hand of Veena as a churning rod, and as a result of their churning, Lord Vishnu, in his partial representation, made his advent as King Prithu, the original emperor of the world. Text 21. Vidura inquired from the sage Maitreya, my dear Brahmana, King Anga was very gentle. He had high character and was a saintly personality and lover of Brahminical culture. How is that such a great soul got a bad son like Veena, because of whom he became indifferent to his kingdom and left it? Text 22. Vidura also inquired, How is that? How is that the great sages who were completely conversant with religious principles desired to curse King Veena, who himself carried the rod of punishment and thus awarded him the greatest punishment, Brahma Shapa? Text 23. It is the duty of all citizens in a state never to insult the king, even though he sometimes appears to have done something very sinful. Because of his prowess, the king is always more influential than all other ruling chiefs. Text 24. Vidura requested Maitreya, my dear Brahmana, you were all you were you are well conversant with all subjects, both past and future. Therefore, I wish to hear from you all the activities of King Veena. I am your faithful devotee, so please explain this. Thank you, Mataji.
Thank you so much, Mataji. Aradhya Mataji, whenever you're ready, you can please take over, Mataji. I'll just stop the share. You want to share it, Mataji?
I'll share. Yep.
Sure, Mataji. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Swapna Mataji, and Hare Krishna to all devotees. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namini Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharini Nirvisesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Dees Shatarini Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vaishati Gaura Bhakti Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Hare. So, today we are. Thank you, Sapna Mataji, for reading all those verses. It might be a short session as we are just describing the descendants of Dhruva Maharaj. So, just a brief overview. In the previous chapters, you have heard about Shiva, Sati, Daksha, and also the glorious determination and devotion of Dhruva Maharaj. So, in chapters 13 to 18, because it's a cluster, you will hear stories about Vena, Anga Maharaj, and episode of Prithu Maharaj. So you will see who those descendants are. So those stories, like the stories that you will hear about Veena, Anga, and Prithu Maharaj are very relevant, and you will enjoy hearing about hearing and learning lessons from them in the previous in the next chapters. So in order to relish that nectar, first you need who is who. So this will mostly be a short session, as it only talks about who the descendants of Dhruva Maharaj are. So at the end of the last chapter, yeah, Maitreya Muni repeats 3 verses spoken by Narad Muni in praise of Dhruva Maharaj. The Bhagavatam tells us that On hearing the description about Dhruva Maharaj, Maharaj became very enlightened and happy in devotional emotion. So in the end of the chapter of the last chapter, Maitra Muni told Vidura, Narad Muni, a great sage, a pure devotee of Lord and Guru of Dhruva Maharaj, he glorified Dhruva in a sacrifice conducted by Prachetas. So as inquisitive, Vidura asked, who are these Prachetas? Why did Narad Muni glorify Dhruva Maharaj in the sacrifice of Prachetas? And as he is fascinated by the topic, Vidura inquires, who are they, right? And then Maitra Muni said that Prachetas are actually descendants of Dhruva Maharaj. In the lineage of Dhruva Maharaj, after several generations, Prachetas would take birth. So Narada Muni glorified Dhruva Maharaj in the sacrifice of Prachetas even after several generations, even after Dhruva Maharaj went back to Godhead also. So Maitra Muni thought of continuing the whole description of lineage of Dhruva Maharaj, as you heard in previous verses. So we can jump to our verses. So Dhruva Maharaj had two sons, Utkala and Vatsara. Utkala was the eldest son who would continue his father's kingship, but in this case, it was different. After Dhruva Maharaj departed for the forest, his eldest son, Utkala, did not accept the opulent throne of his father, as you know from the previous session. You can go back to verses 7 to 9 to learn more about Utkala's qualities. He was peaceful, he was detached, equipoised, basically detached from all material way of life. And the main goal of his life was dedication to the Supreme Lord. He was not interested in any political responsibility. You can think of Janmar's story here as well. So just an example, there are some devotees who take up these administrative roles and become kings or manager and take care of citizens and rule with responsibility and retire with renunciation later. But there are some devotees who do not even take up these responsibilities of administration, and they just want to completely dedicate their lives to full-time devotional service. So in this case, Utkala is the second category. So what we learned, just to think that we need to cultivate qualities like Utkala to advance in Krishna consciousness. The younger son of Dhruva Maharaj, his name is Vatsara, became the king. Because, why? Because Utkala appeared to the less intelligent people as foolish, blind, dumb, deaf, and mad, like a fire covered with ashes. Hence, the ministers crowned his younger brother, named Vatsara, the son of Brahmi, as king. So text 12 to 18 describes the descendants of Dhruva Maharaj. And there's no purport to these verses. And I'm going to refer to a table that I have. So in text 12, you saw that Vatsara, Dhruva Maharaj's son, he married Sarasvati. And then the descendants they had two sons, Pusparna, Pigmaketu, Isha, Urja, Basu, and Jaya. So of those, Pusparna had two wives, Prabha and Dosha. Prabha had three sons, Pratar, Mathyandinam, and Sayam. Dosha had 3 sons, Pradosha, Nishita, and Yushta. And in text 15, you saw that 15 and 16 actually. Vyusha married to Puskarini. They had 1 son, Sarvateja. And then Sarvateja, at text 15 to 16, Sarvateja had married Akuti, and they had 1 son, Chakshusha, which became the 66th Manu. And also in 15 to 16, Chakshusha, he married to Nadvala, and they had 12 sons, Puru, Kushta, Trita, Tyumna, Satyavan, Rita, Vrata, Agnishtoma, Atiratra, Pradyumna, Shivi, and Ulmuka. In text 17, Ulmuka had married to Pushkarini, and they had 6 sons, Anga, Sumana, Khyati, Kratu, Angira, and Gaya. Text 18. Anga had married to Sunita. They had 1 son, Veena, and then you'll hear more about Vena in the preceding chapters. It's a beautiful story you should know. So I'm just going to tack on to text 18. So the lineage that I just described, in the lineage of Vatsara, you saw that Vatsara was like in text 12, the son of Dhruva. So in this lineage of Vatsara, there is a great king named Anga Maharaj. He was a pure devotee of the Supreme Lord. He was very righteous and good king. But unfortunately, Anga Maharaj, although he was a good king, he had a bad son. And the name of that bad son was, you heard that, was Vena. And then he was bitterly disappointed with Vena's character. So King Anga renounced his kingdom and went to the forest. So, and when Maitreya Muni describes like this, Vidura asked, why such a good king had a bad son? Why such a good devotee had a cruel son? So, in order to end those, you will hear that I don't want to spoil the mood. I don't want to take anybody's descriptions, but you will hear in the other verses after 23 that that Vena was cursed by a Brahmana to die. And Vidura was surprised to hear this. So Vidura asked why Vena became like that, meaning why he was so cruel. So in response to his question, which is asked by Vidura, Maitreya Muni very beautifully elaborates. He describes the story of Anga Maharaj. Once Anga Maharaj was doing a sacrifice conducted by the Vedic kings, demigods, devatas would descend and they'll take their oblations, their sacrificial share. So somehow, although Anga Maharaj was performing sacrifice by following all the rules and regulations, and Anga Maharaj, as you will learn, that he had a very pious background, and he employed the first-class priest. Still, demigods did not appear in his sacrifice. They were not manifesting to accept their sacrificial share. So, and he's wondering why the devatas are not manifesting. Then the sages, those priests who were there, they said, my dear Anga, you have actually not performed any sinful activities in this life. But because you have done some misdeeds in the previous life, you do not have a son. Because you do not have a son, the demigods are not coming here. But if you perform a sacrifice to please the Supreme Hari, then you will definitely get a son, and all your future sacrifices will be successful. So I'm not going to continue this story as it will come in the future verses, but wanted to give you just a little so you may build your appetite for future verses. So what we learn is that there are like some devotees suffer in the current life because of their previous misdeeds or previous bad karmas. So we have to, in order to go back to Godhead, you have to be completely 100% pure. So when we get these difficulties, don't think that it's because of I did something, but it could be because of your previous karma. So in text, we don't have purports, many purports. So in text 19, we will read the purport itself. So Srila Prabhupada says in his purport that monarchy is better than democracy, because if the monarchy is very strong and regulatory principles within the kingdom are upheld very nicely. Even 100 years ago, in the state of Kashmir in India, the king was so strong that if a thief were arrested in his kingdom and brought before him, the king would immediately chop off the heads of the thief. As a result of this severe punishment, there were practically no theft cases within the kingdom. Even if someone left something on the street, no one would touch it. The rule was that the things could be taken away only by the proprietor and that no one else would touch them. So in the so-called democracy, wherever there is a theft case, the police come and take note of the case. But generally, the thief is never caught, nor is any punishment offered to him. As a result of incapable government, and the present moment thieves, rogues, and cheaters are very prominent all over the world. So Srila Prabhupada is saying, it depends on how your leader is. If the leader is very pious, the pious things will happen. If the leader is very different, like a betrayal person, then you will see bad, the ripple effect of his bad behavior too, and then it will be seen in the citizens as well. So, and we know that in this democracy, such chaos is result because of the Kali Yuga. And just wanted to mention that that there are 4 defects of the conditioned soul. In the Kali Yuga, you will see that for the conditioned soul, their conditioned soul are prone to make mistakes. They are illusioned. They have cheating tendency, and then imperfect senses. So with all these defeats it's impossible to rule. So therefore, Srila Prabhupada has emphasized his book distribution, that his books should reach to all the nook and corner of the world to make people Krishna conscious. In text 21, we're almost done. So this is the purport of the day that you have to read and then contemplate on this. So in the purport, Srila Prabhupada says, is in family life, a man is supposed to live happily with father, mother, wife, and children. But sometimes under certain conditions, a father, mother, child, or wife becomes an enemy. It is said by Chanakya Pandit that a father is an enemy when he's too much in debt. A mother is an enemy if he marries for a second time. A wife is an enemy when she's very beautiful. And a son is an enemy when he's a foolish rascal. In this way, when a family member becomes an enemy, it is very difficult to live in a family life or remain a householder. Generally, such situations occur in the material world. Therefore, according to Vedic culture, one has to take leave of his family members just after his 50th year, so that the balance of his life may be completely devoted in search of Krishna consciousness. So what we learn briefly, that in order to balance our life, we have to decide for ourselves what will help us in advancing Krishna consciousness. So there are so many good points here, but in the interest of time, I won't go into it. But basically, like you have to, in order to like advance in spirituality, you have to make a to-do list. You have to find out what is blocking your advancement in Krishna consciousness. So that's the thing. In text 22, so this story will come in the previous next verses, that Vidura also inquired, how is it that the great sages who are completely conversant with religious principles desired King Vena, who himself carried the rod of punishment and thus awarded him the greatest punishment, Brahma Sapa. So in this verse, I think I'll read this purport. It is understood that king is able to give punishment to everyone. But in this case, it appears that the great sages punished him. The king must have done something very serious. Otherwise, how could the great sages, who were supposed to be the greatest and most tolerant, still punish him in spite of their elevated religious consciousness? It appears also that the king was not independent of the Brahmanical culture. Above the king was the control of Brahmanas, and if needed, the Brahmanas would throne the king to kill him, not with any weapon, but with the mantra of a Brahmasapa. The Brahmanas were so powerful that simply by their cursing, one would immediately die. So in the Kali Yuga, I just remember this part. People try to say, oh, I curse you for this, I curse you for that. But you know, a person whose curse will affect you, a person who has never lied and who is like so much Brahmanical in their behavior, in their culture. So because Brahmanas, like they never lied, their curse was very powerful. In the Kali Yuga, not so much. Not like everybody cheats, everybody has, everybody lies. So it doesn't happen in Kali Yuga. Last text of the day, text 23. According to the Vedic civilization, the king is supposed to be the representative of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He is called Naranarayan, indicating that Narayan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, appears in human society as the king. It is adequate that neither a Brahmana nor a Kshatriya king is ever insulted by the citizens. Even though a king appears to be sinful, the citizens should not insult him. But in case of Vena, it appears that he was cursed by the Nara Devatas. Therefore, it was concluded that his sinful duties were very grievous. So what we learn here is that it is our duty to respect all without any doubt. Once we build that trust in each other in a way that is helping us in Krishna consciousness, the world will flourish with spirituality. So in these verses, we only learn about the descendants of Dhruva Maharaj, but you will hear like you learn a lot of lessons from these future verses. That how, like Srila Prabhupada will elaborate on how Vena was cursed, what happened to Anga Maharaj, and the descendant of Prithu Maharaj, which is the partial incarnation of the Supreme Lord. So you will learn all of that. So we'll end it here. With that, Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Thank you, devotees. Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much, Mataji, for such a beautiful class.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you for all devotees for joining. Vanchakalpatarubhyasya kalpasya kripa sindhupya eva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namo. Granted Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mataji. Hare Krishna.